Just watch you move. Welcome, bienvenue. Welcome to the first of our property podcasts this week. This is Property Matters, where we talk about things that really affect you. You, all of you. Everyone gets affected by things that happen within or without property. Today's topic is about you can't choose your neighbours. Can't choose your neighbours. Hamish, would you care to start us off?
Well, yes, it's one of those interesting topics, really. And in case you're wondering why we're late, Gareth was speaking to his solicitor about a dispute he's got with his neighbour. But that's another story.
And I didn't even know that this was the topic for today. That's the funny thing.
It's amazing what goes on behind us. There's some dark things happening. I mean, it's back to this, like the situation we sort of tell ourselves. You can choose your friends, but you don't get to choose your family. Neighbours is one of those things that sometimes can be forgotten about completely when we're out there sort of trying to find out our ideal household. Or ultimately, situation I'm in, you've got your nice little household, your sizable sort of garden, you're nice and comfortable, and then the neighbours move in. Yes, but Tiffany is joining us today to tell us a little bit more about this exactly the same subject, because it can actually make such a significant difference. We're fortunate, half the household next door is on holiday, so we're only getting a quarter of the noise. They've taken away part of the noisy element, which is quite handy, and a couple of the dogs. So the dogs aren't barking at the moment, only occasionally that the dog barks. We wait for the return, of course. Yeah, anyway, over to Tiffany.
But I think, Hamish, at one time or another, if you've not always been brought up in a detached house in the middle of the country, at one time or another, we all have some sort of issue with them there over that fence, right?
Oh, yeah.
It happens to us all. And it's just, Tiffany, welcome to the show. It's, I guess, when it starts impinging upon your lifestyle or changing the normal mood or mode by which you conduct your life, that's when it becomes a problem. So you have a story to tell, I believe.
Yes, I do.
Hang on, I'm going to settle in. All right, go on then.
Yes. So this story isn't about me in particular, but about one of my friends that literally lives around the corner. I did. She was meant to be coming to the show today, but unfortunately isn't feeling great. So it's my sort of job to try and tell this story for her. So she had an issue with one of her neighbours that ended up lasting for, I think, about 5 years in the end.
5 years?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so her and said neighbour were close friends for quite a while. They were both single mothers, both had 2 small children, sort of connected with each other over that because they sort of moved into the houses around the same time. So sort of got to know each other, realised we were both single mums, 2 young kids, got on like house on fire during COVID lockdown. They were at a bubble together, and this, that and the other. They had one fallout and then the neighbour completely turned. Just as simple as that, just turned. No warning, no nothing, just completely changed. There was several petty little reports going in to the council saying such and such is doing this, such and such is doing that. So when I first, so I don't want to say get involved, but heard about it, I was originally friends with the neighbour because that's who I'd met first. So she used to tell me this had happened and this had happened, and oh, don't speak to her because she's no good. Nothing. Obviously, I'd never met the other neighbour, so had no sort of reason to think anything else. got to know the other neighbour and very quickly realised that this was all false, this was all malicious. So got to know the other neighbour quite well, and we've been quite good friends now for about 4 years. So when all the reports started going in, obviously my neighbour was contacted by the council and said, we're having certain reports.
Can we characterise the sort of thing that was being complained about?
Yeah, so it was little things like the kids making too much noise, like she thought there was too many people going into the house. She didn't like the fact that there was people standing outside on the street talking. She was the kind of person that was constantly recording on her Ring video doorbell. She didn't like the fact that she didn't like it when the dog was outside in the garden. She just didn't like the kind of atmosphere that was going on in the house. There wasn't any sort of atmosphere, but to her it was wrong and shouldn't be happening. So the council first.
So did it feel like, from me, that she'd had a deep-seated irritation of some sort, and that anything
that she thought she could put a report in about, she would put a report in about.
And this has gone from, and I believe this is not that unusual in the sense that people who have become thrown together as friends through hardship or common experience, it can flip the other way.
Yes.
And it just feels like from that moment onwards, it's a constant ongoing battle.
Yeah, it was a constant uphill battle. So the council first got involved, and then they were both going to start mediation. That both parties had both agreed to mediation. That first mediation session came, and it didn't go very well. Then more reports started coming in.
Do we know why it didn't go well?
I can't 100% remember. I just know it didn't work out. I think the party that had made the complaints weren't willing to accept that they were in the wrong and not the other way around.
Right.
So there was more reports, and then our local PCSO got involved. And then I think in the end, it just got to a point where the council had no reason to suspect the neighbour that had been reported of doing any wrongdoing. But these reports were still coming in. So I think it eventually got to the point where the council were just seeing the reports and then just putting them down as malicious. But the neighbour was still having to be told when the reports were coming in. So even though they were being put down as malicious, they were still having to be told, say, we've just had another report. Which, of course, when you're living in that sort of situation, as a single mum with 2 kids, the barrage of that played a massive impact on her mental health.
So hang on a moment. Is there not a tipping point at which the council will come in and say this will need to be referred to the police as a criminal nuisance?
I think it just got under that point. Like, as I said, the local PCSO was involved, but she was sort of seen more as an outside mediator. So she would go to the first neighbour, speak to her, would come to the second neighbour, speak to her. But as far as that went, that didn't go any further. That was just PCSO involvement, and then the council just putting the reports down as malicious. In the end, it has come to the fact that the neighbour that has made the reports has moved now, which has stopped everything. But it's had to get to that point of one of them moving for it to stop.
It just appears to me that once someone has got the bit between their teeth and is determined to make their point, that they're going to keep pushing home and until, I mean, it just seems wrong. Surely there should be.
Well, I'm a great one for recognizing when sort of things aren't exactly going the right way. It's part of my sort of ethos. It's part of the way that I work. And I try and ensure that, when I actually see, I try and see what a balanced view is. And because there's 2 different types. There's the times that Tiffany's neighbour actually had to sort of tolerate because somebody had chosen to be vindictive. What can be even worse is when you have a neighbour that doesn't have a clue at how bad they really are.
Right. Yes. I've come across this.
And the situation is, it doesn't matter what you say about them. They're very, very protective because I suppose it's the way that you do it. I mean, maybe it wasn't the best way that I actually started off with my neighbour, for example, calling in the environmental officer.
Right.
But the absurd thing is, some people do not realise at all. But basically, I have a neighbour. There's houses, I don't know. I guess it's about 20 houses altogether in this sort of little sort of complex. And there's more noise comes from her household and her garden than the rest of the 20 properties put together. But the other evening, it was about 11:30. I was still in my office, and one of the neighbours from the road behind came and said, Hey, Vish, is something burning? And our next door neighbours had a nice sort of bonfire in a can or something or other. I mean, it couldn't have been on the grass because they've got plastic grass, but it was pretty bloody close to our wooden fence. So,
right.
But my wife actually spotted them at 1:30. They're still out there with one of those head things on, walking around in the garden, sort of sowing
1:30 in the morning.
It's so funny, really. Anyway, but they don't realise, because this same person, what she'll actually sort of do, it is funny. Because there's so much
through no actions of mine, suddenly I was blanked and ghosted, and still to this day not entirely sure why. That could be very upsetting. And if you've been, thrown together in a lockdown or a rest of it, come out the other side, and suddenly you flip, and the net effect is that your life becomes hard to deal with, and the mental effect. We've actually had a message in from Simon Charles. So I've lived with bad neighbours in the past. It's a nightmare. I'm totally with you, Simon. Totally with you. Tiffany, you yourself, have you been through it whereby there's either been infractions with neighbours or with localized within the community, and that's changed your own mental health as a result?
I think the biggest thing I can say is this situation that I spoke about, because I ended up being quite heavily involved in this,
right?
Because I'd seen it from both parties, because I'd had involvement with both parties. I ended up being quite heavily involved with it.
In a way,
so obviously,
you're an objective viewer, and you could actually see the reality of the thing.
And obviously, it got to the point where the neighbour that I'm friends with now needed to get as much support as she could from the neighbours that she speaks to, the neighbours that she gets along with, to sort of say, this is malicious, this isn't what's going on, we need to prove that this is wrong.
A reality check, if you will. Reality check. Yes.
So it's as you said, it doesn't just affect the people that are involved, it does affect the people on the outside as well, because you do sort of feel, I wouldn't say pulled into it, but as somebody with involvement, it sort of gets to you as well, and thinking, could this same person start on me as well and come after me and my family, or things like that. So I think you have to help as much as you can, but at the same time sort of try and take us a little bit of a step back to try and protect yourself as well.
Simon's carried on to said noise. Now, I've got to ask you, Simon, if you're still watching, were you the noisy neighbour, or are you complaining about their noise? I'm interested, because it can happen both ways. I remember when I was very young, I used to play, ladies and gentlemen, in my other life, I'm a drummer. And one of the earliest things I have was with pots and pans outside, bashing away on the pots and pans as a 7-year-old, and the neighbour leaning over the fence saying, "Can't you keep that racket down?" I was the noisy neighbor. I mean, I was very good. I did keep it down, but and then of course my parents bought me a drum kit. Anyway, we put that in the back room. but the point is, it can happen both ways, can't it? I'm asking if there's Simon. Were you the one that creating noise, or were you the one receiving the noise? And it's very hard, isn't it, if they're not self-aware, Hamish, for them to realise that playing the stereo top volume at 1 o'clock in the morning with their friends while drunk is possibly not going to help relations.
Oh, I mean, yeah, we haven't had any feedback from Simon yet. I must admit, I have been known in my sort of, I'd like to say my youth, but I was a lot older than that. We used to have a challenge with the neighbour who would tell us sort of every Saturday night that it was too noisy and could we do something about it. Sadly for him, the majority of the time, we couldn't hear him knocking on the door because there was so much noise. So I have been guilty. But I was aware of it because he wasn't a particularly friendly soul, so I wasn't that fussed about it.
Simon's come back and said his wife and he were the victims. I'm sorry to hear that. So, and the biggest issue, of course, is when you try and represent yourself. So here's the portrayal, and we've had this before. When I used to live in Edgware, next door to us was a lovely Polish lad who used to practice his Van Halen rock guitar, but he would do it at midnight, and yeah, not always helpful. So when you go around and knock on the door, and his mum came down and said, "My son's got a right to play the instrument," and you say, "Yeah, a different time of day, perhaps." It's hard to get that across without coming across like an ogre, and then that starts a whole new different things. But no, in the case that you were mentioning, Tiffany, once that slippery slope has started sliding down, it's very hard. I mean, as demonstrated, went to mediation, and that didn't work because they couldn't see themselves.
Yeah,
they couldn't. That's the thing. I think that Hamish, the biggest problem is when people are unself-aware. They don't realise that what they're doing is impinging.
Well, I think we can actually sort of one tends to be able to read that situation and think, well, there was somebody was actually being vindictive. My neighbours aren't vindictive.
No,
they're just totally inconsiderate, and they have not taken into consideration people either side of them, people at the bottom of their garden, because everybody thinks they're a complete and utter pain. But I mean, they themselves don't see it that way.
Well, they won't, because they're drinking their own Kool-Aid. They're fishing in their own fish pond.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, bloody great swimming pool in the garden there. Takes up 25% of the garden. Then there's a massive, great trampoline. And then bidoing. So, I mean, it's good fun. It's good fun. And even the dog gets on the trampoline and puts his paws up over the top of the fence.
I have to say, I'm sorry, you're not doing much for your case of being a nuisance. That sounds adorable. Tiffany, does this, in your mind, because you've been living in accommodation, which is often where you've got terraces, people either side of you, does this happen more these days or less than when you were than when you were younger?
I think the nightmare neighbours themselves, I don't particularly think that it's increased as much, but I think that the community neighbourly feel has dropped quite considerably.
I've heard this
I think a lot of neighbours now just prefer to keep themselves to themselves, maybe have conversations with one or two. I mean, it's like us. It's like us, really. When we moved in here 8 years ago, we did sort of keep ourselves to ourselves. So I got to know a few people round the block. It's like now we know more of the neighbours now because we've got a dog.
Yes.
Because people stop and speak to the dog. We know
course.
more people on this estate now because we've got a dog. But I think a lot of people now choose to prefer to keep themselves to themselves to avoid situations like this.
This is and Hamish, I'm gonna pass the ball to you if you could take us home. But I just one last comment. I've always been a person that wants a community, wants to be part of a community, wants to feel like I belong in a community. But I felt a tendency for people, as Tiffany said, to err on the side of caution, keep themselves to themselves to prevent any of that sort of thing happening at all.
Well, I must admit, I didn't really help matters with our neighbours because I would have bands playing in the garden and invite everybody else in the neighbourhood, but not the next doors.
Before you get into it, Simon has written a small short story. I'm just going to read it. Lived in the ground floor of a poorly soundproofed conversion beneath a neighbour who repeatedly played loud music, caused early morning noise. We paid for false ceilings. Eventually had to involve environmental health. He threatened court action before the problem stopped. Before we shared an entrance, relations became extremely tense, and the experience made our own home stressful and unpleasant. And Simon, I feel for you, but I don't think this is necessarily a story that hasn't been repeated all over the place, where some impingement on your liberties, often sound or smells. Smells was one from a neighbour of ours who just put all their food rubbish just outside our door, and the lid had broken off their food bin years ago, so it just festered and smelled. It was horrendous. And what do? And the problem is if you're not careful about your cleverly worded complaint in such a way that they feel all valued and loved, then you can end up creating the slippery slope you described earlier, Tiffany. Hamish, would you care to take us home?
Well, that's a bit difficult now, isn't it? We've sort of outlined some wonderful neighbours that we all actually have that we can't do anything about. Well, actually, no,
I think they're all lovely, and I love them all. There we go.
Well, so do I. I mean, I'd love to be able to say, hey, how you? The trouble is, the bodies keep changing. The different bodies keep moving in and out, and so you never quite know who to speak to, really. And I still don't know the name of the matriarch that runs the house, and her daughter and boyfriend, and I don't know this. It gets complicated. Some neighbours are very simple and straightforward. We've got a neighbour on the other side, and you couldn't have a better neighbour anywhere. Absolutely incredible. Right. A tremendous compensation. But I won't go into the story about him because I'm not allowed to go out with him anymore.
Oh dear.
I'll tell you about that in the green room.
Right, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that one. All right, so Hamish, it's been a good session. Thank you so much, Tiffany. You're always bringing an extra point of view. I love the fact that when Tiffany talks, she talks from real experience, real lived experience. It's stuff that really happens. Makes me feel like I can be part of it. Not always comfortably part of it, but it's good to hear about things that are real rather than imagined. And Hamish always helping to put colour on these things. See how Tandy is at the moment, getting a lot of sun. But no, thank you all, and thank you, Simon, and everybody else who's out there. It helps us to know that what we're saying at least strikes a chord with you. I can't guarantee that we can put everything to rights, but certainly don't feel alone. We've all had these experiences, and it probably does us all good to talk about them. Tomorrow, we've got Ipsy Kind of Magic. Hamish happens to be the chairman of the Association of Independent Personal Search Agents. We're talking about that, promoting all things Ipsy, all things Ipsy membership. And on Thursday, we've got Property Quorum, and then the bun fight on Friday. That is Matters, yes, which we look forward to because we've got and I'm gonna rah this on Friday. We put out a deadline. Oh yes, a deadline. And if and if you want to find out more about this, please go to the YouTube channel, which I would ask you to subscribe to. We've got some damn fine interviews and all sorts of things on there. If you look at the YouTube channel, which is called Spilling the Proper Tea, if you go there, you'll find on the previous Cladding Matters, we put out an ultimatum. And Friday is D-Day, so please do come along, be part of that. Who knows? We put out an invitation to council members to turn up. We really hope they do. We've also potentially got an invitation for a couple of other people to turn up. And goodness knows, it's going to be very enjoyable. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Tiffany, for turning up today. Very helpful. Right from the coal edge there. Hamish McClay, the person who set us in, and me thanking all of you for coming to see us. Remember, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. And in these troubled times, remember to wear sunscreen and stay hydrated. Take care. Bye-bye now.